5-second countdown.
Totally possible that the judge has a toothache, right? Or needs to get his car inspected. So just realized, like, oh, can't meet tomorrow.
Good afternoon, everyone. How are you?
But it is also
Today,
noting that things have been going very
this is
badly.
Robert Gums with the Concerned Forum.
His lawyers have lost on
And
every single
I have a guest that you're probably familiar with,
and including Paul Manafort being moved several days ago to
Mr. Strong, Mr. David Strong. But for right now, we're going to jump right to the meat of it
this hearing in Manafort's case
because Mr. Strong will be coming on,
because of some
and he's going to talk to you
case, but everybody is
about something called CRT. And of course, I think that Mr. Strong is more than qualified to speak on it. Veteran, former Air Force officer, flight instructor, activist, educator, and on and on. But to get this party started, let's talk about what's really going on in this country. And really, to be quite frank about it, how disgraceful it is. I never started this show with the idea to use it as a vehicle to hurt people's feelings. I did begin this show as a vehicle to speak truth. And to be frank about it, not just truth to power. Because to the man and woman on the street, sometimes they need to be taken down a peg with the truth. First thing I want to say, never in my life, and it really doesn't mean all that much, but I'm just letting you know how I feel. If anybody ever comes to my home and sees an album or any video, anything pertaining to Kanye West, I can tell you right now, they're in a delusion because I will never have anything of that person in my home, in this life or the next. I think that his behavior over the last 4 years has been disgraceful. I'm not just saying this as a black man or as a black American man. I'm saying this as a humanist, as a secular humanist, as a person that believes in humanity, in justice, and I want to say forgiveness. I guess that's something I'm going to have to work on. I see Kanye almost on the same level as the people that helped Hitler to do his thing, because that's where this gentleman is at. How could any person, not just a person of color, but especially a person of color, how could you run a phony campaign to help Donald Trump? I just, it blows my mind. This man is down with the Ku Klux Klan. He is down with, the Bula Bula Boys and all this other ridiculous crap, Oath Keepers, all this nonsense. We have to be careful. And when we see them, we have to point out these type of Larry Elder people of color, okay? And I just don't say black American. I say people of color because, unfortunately, people of color, black, Hispanic, Asians, Native Americans, indigenous people, we've all caught hell basically from the same type of people. As a matter of fact, at one time, believe it or not, that also included Italians and Irish. Um, we have been so miseducated, both mainly black and white, in regards to people of color in general and to our role in American society specifically. Did you know a whole battalion of Irish immigrants were hung by the United States Army in the Mexican-American War? A battle which was kind of ironic because all of the big names of the Civil War fought in that battle as American fighting men. Remember, this was about 15, 16 years. When was Chapultepec? I think about 1846. So we're talking between, I don't know, 16, 18 years before the Civil War. Grant was at that battle. Robert E. Lee was at that battle. What's that guy's name? Not Bedford Forrest, but another gentleman. As a matter of fact, he was Lee's second in command at the Battle of Gettysburg. I'll probably think of his name later. And he wound up becoming a Republican after the end of the war. But at that battle, you had a battalion of Irish, you might as well say Irish American at that time. These were immigrants. And they felt that they were catching so much hell from their officers especially, because you have to remember, at that time, most of your officer class in the Army were Protestants. And what they did, they despised the Irish because the Irish were Catholics. And the Irish felt that, hey, wait a minute, why in the hell are we fighting with these, Protestants who despise and hate us and help these people to steal Mexican territory? Now, I know this probably offends folks in Texas, but look, that whole Texas Mexican-American War thing, it was a steal. A lot of y'all like to yell about the steal. Well, the steal wasn't November of 2020. The real steal was in Texas war against Mexico first, and then the Mexican-American War.
Amen.
Because the South wanted that territory to increase their range of slavery. And, this is something that people, I started to say that they wanted to, they like to forget. But the more I see of Americans here lately, and the older I get, the more I realize that a lot of Americans, a lot of these things people really don't know, see? And you need to know them because that right there explains a large part of the problem that we have with our immigration policy. Yeah, we stole Mexico. And Bobby Gums is not the only one saying this. Senators, a young congressman from Illinois, what was his name? He did a few noteworthy things later on. But he was, at the time, he was an obscure little backbencher congressman. You might have heard of this guy, Lincoln. All these people said that the Mexican-American, the commanding general of the American army that marched into Mexico said the same thing, that the war was wrong because we were stealing land from the Mexican people. This movie that came out a few years ago about Malcolm X, he makes a statement basically saying to people of color, yeah, you didn't land at Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on you. Well, that's exactly what happened. Now, does that make me anti-American? Well, most of my family's been here since 1680, so how could I be against myself? But it's about truth. And that seems to always be a problem with America. And quite frankly, I guess you could say I'm kind of pissed today. I really am, because I'm sick of it. I'm sick of the nonsense from people who feel that they should take a disease, a damn disease, and turn it into a political weapon to divide the country in half. And that is insanity. And also, what it has done, it has given that same disease a chance to multiply, which is what it's doing. Now, New York, being New York, and the type of people that we have living here, for the most part, it's taken very seriously in this part of the country. But in other parts of the country, where, I mean, let's face it, people are not that well informed, it is wreaking havoc. And the people who are suffering the most are the people in this country who are the most conservative. All you have to do is look at the places that went for Trump. And these are the same places where people are dying like flies behind this disease. And I know because I work in the field, number one. I mean, I just don't say this off the top of my head. Oh, well, they're going to leave the Army if you force people to take the, take the vaccine. Well, as a veteran myself, I just want to say bye, number one. Number two, you know how many people have left the military so far because they have to take the vaccine? 27. That's all. No massive walkouts or resignations or mutinies. And I think that that's shameful. The thing with Larry Elders and what's his name, Herschel Walker in Georgia, I mean, how could you support a party that tells people that look like you that they shouldn't have the unquestioned right to vote the same way anyone else does? All is required is that you be an American citizen, number one. Number two, that you get off your butt and you go vote. But yet the Republican Party, which I always have to correct myself and say, this is no longer the Republican Party. You know, this is a new right-wing neo-Nazi party that has taken the place of what used to be traditionally the Republican Party. Now, my problems, and I'm a registered Democrat, I tell you that right up front, left-wing Democrat, extremely left-wing. And that has nothing to do with trying to impinge upon anyone else's freedom. Just like with this vaccine business. You can't get in your car and say, well, today I'm not going to put on my seatbelts. Hell, it's my car, my gas, I'm the one that's driving, so I'm not going to wear my seatbelt. You can't do that. So this idea about government trying to tell you something, that's BS. It doesn't work, right? In 1777, Washington passed out orders. Get vaccinated. That was at Valley Forge. So again, nothing new about being required to have a vaccination. Why? Because you can get other people sick or quite dead. So we need to have enough of this nonsense. Also, this thirst for violence that the right wing seems to have, all right? Now, a 17-year-old kid decides that he wants to leave home, go to another state, and kill people, right? And he decides to do that. That's what he does. He kills two people. And the right wing, it was just that, when was it, last night or the night before? They were making this little chump a hero. Why is a 17-year-old that kills two people, and he's far away from home, how does that make him a hero? And some people will say, well, it was self-defense. Well, he wouldn't have needed to defend himself if he had stayed his butt in Illinois instead of traveling, where did he go, Minnesota or Wisconsin? He went to a whole nother state. And you have these people on Fox saying that, oh, well, yeah, way to go. And I'm asking myself, if the kid was, if he had such big cojones, why didn't he join the Marine Corps? He's old enough. If his mama can give him permission to go to another state to kill people, she could sign the waiver and have him join the Marine Corps or the Navy or the Army or the Air Force or even the Coast Guard. But no, he decides to go to a place where tempers are flaring. People are angry because they're tired of seeing unarmed people be shot down by the police. Real simple. It's not too hard to understand why. And you have the right wing talking about, oh, well, look at that, they love the violence. Well, America was born in violence. America has always been a violent place. I'm getting the blackboard, and I'm going to try and do like they do on CNN and MSNBC. They put the board out so they can, visibly show people exactly what they're referring to. I'm going to do that. And I'm going to show you all the lynchings that took place here in America between 1866 and 1980. And you tell me, because that's what they're trying to say, you tell me about minority violence and urban violence. See, this is the problem. One of the problems that we have on the so-called left, and I hate this, using these terms, left and right. An idea can be good or it can be bad. But as usual, people weaponize the language. And it's like trying to talk to a brick wall. You're going to tell me about this thing, I believe it's Minnesota. You're going to tell me about a riot in Minnesota because somebody burned down the damn drugstore. Well, people have an obligation to be peaceful. But sometimes people get fed up when they feel that they're constantly being trampled on. I'm still waiting for Trump supporters to tell me just exactly what is it that they wish to do. Now, you got what, about 130, 140, possibly more, million people of color in this country. We all ain't going to disappear. Okay, that's not going to happen. You feel, I'm trying to work this out in my head, and I guess I'm just slow because I haven't figured out yet what it is that you're trying to do. Like when you, on the right, you come up with these slogans, take the country back. All right, I can dig that, take the country back. So you're saying that what, Canada or Mexico or Guatemala has taken over America? So somehow we have to win it back. All right, I can dig that too. Now you show me an example of Canada making legislation to tell Americans what they are supposed to do. And hell, I'll go out there and I'll march along with you. But so far, my friends, I ain't seen that yet. As a matter of fact, you cry and yell talking about China. Well, yeah, I have some issues with how China takes care of their house. But hey, unfortunately, we're not a one world planet, okay? We have different nationalities on this planet. China does what China does. But you know something? If you want to keep pissing off China, all these right-wing people that shop at Walmart, they're going to be in a whole lot of trouble. Because all those Trump rallies you see on TV or that you saw during the campaign, guess what? If I clap my hands like that and say, hey, make Chinese influence in America disappear, you'd have a whole bunch of people in West Virginia standing around naked. Because that's where they are. That's where they get their clothes from. USA, USA. And you get the T-shirts and the hats and all this stuff. All that stuff's made in China. So what the hell are you talking about? If you want to destroy a country, if you want to tear a country in half, I mean, that's fine. I mean, really, that's fine. But you should at least have the decency to coherently and intelligently explain to mankind why. Now, I remember, with my bad memory here, I remember a part in the Declaration of Independence where it says something to the effect of decent respect to the opinion of mankind requires that we name these causes which impel us to this separation. Now, you folks who follow behind Trump, that's what you want to do, right? You want to separate. You hate the cities. You hate urban America. You hate all these blacks and browns and reds and mixing and riding the subways together. You know, that's anathema to you folks. You know, you hate you hate disco. Remember? Disco sucks. Remember those days? That wasn't too long ago. You hate disco, right? Especially some of you older ones out there. You hate hip hop. Well, at least you do. I don't know about your kids though, but that's a different story. But you hate everything that the Eastern elite represents in your mind. You hate all that. Okay, fine. You want to be separated from all that. You want to maintain the right to tell a woman when she can carry to term in a pregnancy and when she can't. Well, fine. What you need to do, write up a manifesto. Tell the world why you want to tear this country apart. Explain to us why you think it's okay for the Soviet Union or Russia, however you want to call them, to basically dictate how we tear our government apart. Because that's what's happened. And if you think I'm bullshit, just ask anybody that worked Intel in the 80s if Donald Trump was not joined at the hip to those commissars over there in Russia. Now, a lot of them, most of them not going to be stupid and loudmouth as I am and tell the truth. But I'm to the point, I don't give a damn. I really don't, because this is my country, okay, who I risk my life for. And I know the things that have caused a lot of this mess. And I think it's time that those of us who know the truth stand up, go out there, and speak the truth. Yeah, Trumps have been in the bag to Russia since the 80s. How do we know this? Well, I spent over 5 years doing intel. And yes, Donald's name came up quite frequently in terms of his travel plans. So that's just a fact of life. But if you think that all that stuff that I just called off, if you think that that's a good enough reason to forget about Valley Forge, to forget about the rockets' red glare at Fort McHenry, to forget the, however you want to put it, the winning or stealing of the West, or at least the heroism that went behind that. If you want to forget about the Meuse-Argonne, if you want to forget about Iwo Jima and Normandy, if you want to forget about the Chosin Reservoir, if you want to forget that this country is the only country that I know of in my study of history that actually went to war to free other human beings. You know, you folks in the right wing, you guys are a real trip, you know? Seriously. You talk so much about, oh, well, Obama, he doesn't believe that the United States is a unique place, that we're special. Well, guess what? That's a damn lie, number one. Number two, I have to agree. America, it is a special and unique place. Maybe we are here for a purpose. I don't know. I'm not a theologian, and I'm not an angel. But I do know that you folks on the right and all you Trump supporters, you're trying to destroy something beautiful. And you should be ashamed of yourself. You truly should. And it's not just a black thing or a people of color thing. I think of all those brave people who took their lives in their hands, literally, and gave their lives in the course of human freedom. I think about people like John Brown, which is my favorite. You know, if you want to talk about heroes, American heroes, I'm sorry. For me, John Brown goes to the top of the list because he didn't have to do what he did, him and his sons. They didn't have to do that, but they did it. I think of all those white folks out there in the so-called heartland who ran, in many cases, the Underground Railroad, which was almost a guaranteed death sentence, especially those that lived in the South, if they were caught. And some of them were. But can you imagine that? Somebody comes home and tells you, yeah, we just hung your dad. We found out he was helping blacks escape to the North or to Canada. That's what happened. You want to, I don't know, throw that away? Okay. But at least be man or woman enough to sit down and write a coherent, understandable declaration as why. I keep hearing this BS about take the country back or let's go back what America used to be. But I don't get no answer. I say, okay, when was that? I get silence. There's an expression sometimes that the adventure is in the journey itself, or something like that. And as I get older, I start to realize maybe that's what America is about. It's about the journey, right? To a more perfect union, to a more freer society. And the fun, the excitement is the journey itself. And that is what makes us special. Because you look at what people have had to put up with, what they had to go through. And I respect the ethnics, the immigrants, as we say up north. You know, the Irish, the Italian, the Poles, the Hungarians. You know, a lot of times crammed into the old steamships and those old sailing ships to come here. And now, Trump and his followers and the mental Nazis, you guys, you know, they want to just tear all that apart. I have people saying, oh, well, I don't want my kid to be able to learn about this part of history, or I don't want him or her to read that book. Wait a minute, man. I thought that's what the hell you were running from. And I say that to my Caribbean brothers and sisters, because I'm half Caribbean. And I say to you, you ran away from Cuba because you didn't like the idea of one man rule. One man calls the shots for everything. And he can loot the treasury while he's at it for him and his family. And you hated that. You felt it was wrong. So you come here to America. And now you want to support people down there in Florida that are just like the people you ran away from. No, I don't understand. I really don't. But that's just something I just had to get that off my chest. And for the Herschel Walkers and Larry Elders, you ought to be ashamed of yourselves because you know better. And I think that you are sad, some sad individuals. And in the sane world, you should be able to depend upon one vote, your own. Now, we come to the pièce de résistance, because Mr. Strom is going to tell us his observations about CRT. Lay it on us, Professor.
Well, you know, this code word CRT is used as something that is so bad, and it's drawing attention to something away from what we need to really attend to. First of all, we have to remember that this nation was built on a revolution for the monarchy in Britain. And when this happened, this was because the elites that were here were involved in a system of enslaving African people who were kidnapped from Africa. And as some people have said, the British were at the point where they were thinking of ending slavery. The people that came here from Britain, they didn't, quote unquote, have a visa. And they invaded this land where the indigenous people have lived and set up their colonies and set up a system of capitalism using slave labor to enrich themselves. So if we fast forward to the point that we are now, we have a situation where those in leadership have to go on steroids to divide and conquer the people. That is the way that leadership is done to control people. So we have a situation where a small number of people, the elite, less than that 1%, a fraction of that 1%, keep these things going that draw attention, like CRT, like other things away from the real issue, which is that a small number of people, the ruling elite, capitalists, imperialists, are getting richer while people are getting poorer. And that includes all people, so-called white people, so-called black people, and this whole classification system is something that's made up for the specific purpose of dividing people. And they know that the way you rule anything is you divide people up any way you can, and then you can rule, and they're very effective. So the people in that category called white, and I'm just going to explain that in addition to the class system here, you have a caste system. Like in India, you have a caste system. Well, you have a caste system here. One part of the caste system is that quote-unquote group called white, the people who left Africa, went to Europe, and over thousands of years developed the physical situation that lent itself to the environment they were in.
Okay.
So that's one caste, the white caste. The other caste that is the secondary caste, the basic one, is the black caste. So even though all the people in that white class are not in the ruling class, they don't have anything, they're still in the white caste. And so a person who is poor and white, being in that caste, is considered superior to anybody in the black caste, whether that person is at the bottom or top. They could be in the upper echelon of the black caste, and still the person in the white caste is superior. So that's all a part of divide and conquer. Now, as far as education goes, as I see it, before I get there, I just want everyone to know that I am not a representative of any group or party. I am not a member of any party and whatnot.
Yeah, we
so I want to be clear that I'm talking for myself.
Right.
The point is this. When you want to control people, you want to basically, let's say, keep people ignorant. And what you do in your society, I'm talking about American society, right now, you control the schools. And you put close watch on what is taught in the schools. You control the print media, all the print media, radio, that is newspapers and magazines and so forth. You control electronic media, all the television and radio stations, maybe 90-something% of them are controlled by the elite that runs the country, and as well as the print media. And all the attention is on the scapegoats that you come up with. Now, Bob has told you about the Mexicans and whatnot. That's a good scapegoat. Call Mexicans rapists and murderers and all that. And another good scapegoat is the designated people called black folks, African Americans. And you find all the scapegoats that you can find to get attention away from yourself. That's how this place is run. So as a result of that, you're not going to teach any kind of real history. They don't teach real history in these schools. They teach children allegiance, and that's it. Not the real history, not the history of people coming here and ethnically cleansing and practicing genocide, eliminating the people they call Indians, indigenous people. They don't tell you about those type of things, and they don't put anything in there that would question or put the attention to their policies. They don't tell you about the 13th Amendment. They say, well, we end chattel slavery, but we maintain slavery for people who are prisoners. And that's what we have in effect today. The 13th Amendment has an exception. So what they did, as you can look up in a book called Slavery by Another Name, even though the 13th Amendment was put into effect, the ruling elite have ways to get around that and enslave thousands and thousands of people from the 13th Amendment on. So we have a situation where they don't teach you those things in most of the schools. The schools are controlled by those people who rule, and that's an embarrassment to them, and that's why they are coming out against critical race theory in any way they can to get people away from learning real history.
Okay, now, I think where you're coming from, and I agree with you. As a matter of fact, I agree with you so much, and people who have watched this show for any amount of time know that if I have a disagreement with my guests, I let them know. And especially when it comes to you, okay? But I agree with you 100% on what you just said. I agree with you so much that, being a person, I'm not a wealthy attorney or anything of that nature. So I have to figure out how I can find a good public attorney, because I would like to deal with these states that are basically trying to stop the teaching of American history, because that's what they're doing. They're trying to stop the teaching of American history. And I would like to take them to court because what they're trying to do, they are trying to commit cultural genocide against working class white people and against people of color. Because when you try to stop a person from learning who he is, and it's just as important for little white Susie to know the full deal of American history as it is for little black Malik to learn about his story. Because it's all, see, that's the thing. I think that's one of the big mistakes that we made when this whole thing about black history, and you're going to see it come a month from now, come February, Black History Month. I think that was a mistake, because black history in America is not something that belongs to black people. It's not a black story. It's an American story.
It's history.
Okay, we put it that way. It's history. It's American history. What are we going to start doing next? Are we going to say, oh, well, we can't teach about the Holocaust? I don't think that would be a smart thing to do. I don't think that would be a right thing to do. Are we going to, how come we're not teaching And you should have this when you get into junior high school. History of the labor movement in this country. Or about the time a state government actually declared war on white working class Americans in Kentucky and in West Virginia. You know, we're going through this thing now with, what's his name, Manchin from West Virginia, right? Now, those folks in West Virginia, and this is not Bobby Gum saying this, this is historians, you know, people that have 30 degrees, 30 letters behind their names and whatnot, telling you, West Virginia is in that group of, was it, 3? Mississippi, Alabama, and West Virginia. These states I just mentioned, they are constantly fighting each other. Who is going to be in first place in the contest for the, you know,
They're
for
the poorest states.
For
They're
the poorest states. Number one. Number two, who is the most uneducated state? It's a race between Alabama, Mississippi, and West Virginia. So how in the hell, and it's starting. You got a bunch of coal miners in the coal miners union are standing up to Manchin and saying, wait a minute, buddy, why are you trying to mess with Biden's Build It Back Better? We need this help. That black lung, everybody in West Virginia, either they have the black lung or they got folks in their family
I
that
think
have
there's
it.
a takeaway thing that needs to be mentioned, and
Okay,
I
well, go
think
ahead.
it's very
Go ahead.
important. By the ability of the ruling elite to do what they're doing, divide and conquer, and spread people in different directions and get attention away from themselves, all the people are losing. In other words, the little white people, not the ruling class ones, they're losing in not having a good health care system. They're losing in being poor. They're losing in every way in terms of not having the right infrastructure and social conditions for the elderly and a pension system. All of these things could be had if people got away from this divide and conquer. So as long as the ruling group can keep people divided and conquer, everybody's losing, including the regular white people who think that they are getting an advantage.
Well, see, here goes the thing. And this goes back to a show I did, I think it was last week or the week before. And I point out that the greatest harm that this country has done to itself is that you have these in places like West Virginia. Now, and this has nothing to do with whether you like any particular party or not, but it's just a fact. West Virginia is what they call a red state. To me, that means that when you allow the Republican Party to constantly make you a chump by constantly pulling the wool over your eyes, that's what makes you a red state. And I marvel at the ability that the Republican Party has had over the last 30 years, really since Reagan came to town, the ability to get poor working class whites to constantly vote against their own interests. It is incredible. And I submit that as long as this type of Republican Party, I'm not talking about the Republican Party. When my dad was an active participant in the Republican Party, when the people in my community were registered Republicans. Hell, it took Jack Kennedy. Actually took FDR, Truman, and Jack Kennedy to get black and Hispanic people to vote Democratic. Before that, they were solid Republicans. But see, you vote and you expect something for your vote. You expect someone that's going to help you with your quality of life. And see, that's the thing that is so amazing about this Republican Party, because all they're interested in doing is basically feeding the white working class tales of racial superiority, right? And it used to be anti-communist. Now it's against the Eastern and Western state elites, see? But in terms of trying to improve the material conditions of white working class people, the Republican Party hasn't done a goddamn thing. And it's so sad.
I think it's important to understand that the capitalist, imperialist system that we have here has one thing in mind, and that is to make profit for those who run the system. And that is the best way when you can keep people ignorant.
All right, I'm going to cut you off right there. What did you just say? You said the system, the capitalist system that we have, is about profit. It's about profit, right?
That's it.
Okay.
This is not
Wait a minute.
Northern
I'm
Europe.
not finished with you. I'm Joe McDougal. And I'm from Appalachia, western part of West Virginia. And I'm going to look at you, and I'm going to say, Professor Dave, what's wrong? You think I'm a bad person because I want to someday make a profit? Is that what makes me bad? That's why I don't like communists, because they're telling me I shouldn't be able to make a profit. Now, what do you say to them?
The point is, if you are operating in this society and you're running an enterprise, and your goal in this one is to make the maximum profit and as little expense as possible to pay your workers and whatnot, that needs to be changed. You need to pay your taxes. You need to contribute in a society where everybody is benefiting. You can't have a few people who are rich and at the top and keep the masses of people on the bottom poor.
Okay, sounds nice. So you explained to Joe McDougal, right? That's what you just explained to him. So as Joe, if you believe that, then how could you possibly vote for a guy like Donald Trump?
Right, because, well, I'll tell you why. The reason why is they have played you. Don't you Joe doesn't understand this is one big scam. That's the way they control people. You see his meetings and people are hooping and hollering and whatnot. Yes, because you can fool people. They don't understand that this is not in their favor. So that's why you have 3 people in this country who have as much wealth as the bottom half of the population. So, it's a matter of people understanding that they're being played, and they should know that those people at the top are laughing as they go way to the back. Now, they have capitalism in Norway, Sweden, Iceland, Switzerland, Denmark, and so forth. But it's on the wraps. They don't let the capitalists run over them, so the people have a much better social infrastructure than you have here. And it can be done. People don't have to worry about health care. People don't have to worry about retirement and all the conditions, the important social conditions in terms of housing and other things. So it can be done, but it's not done in the United States. It's done in those northern European countries. So that's possible to have capitalism and have good social benefits for all the people. That's why those countries have the happiest people in the world.
Now, oh, and by the way, when I say call me Joe McDougal, there is a Joe. His last name, it's a Mac. It's not McDougal. Okay? I didn't want to use his last name. But I am literally giving you a conversation I had back in 1988 when I was in that fighter squadron down in Jacksonville. And we had this same type of conversation one night when I was standing watch. Joe said, well, the way my people feel about it, they think that you blacks and Hispanics are getting all the gravy, and us white folks, especially us from Appalachia, y'all call us appy trash and look down on us, and we don't get a goddamn thing from the government. Now, that's what Joe said.
Well, I mean, that shows just how successful the ruling class is to make fools out of people. And that's what they want to do. They want to separate people. And some people fall for it. They don't get it. They don't get it. So that's the problem we have, getting across to people how things work. And people don't understand. They don't want to educate you. They want to train you. There's a difference between education and training.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you something straight up. Looking at it from the Republican angle, these Republicans of today, they don't want to train you. They don't want to educate you. They don't want to train you. Actually, they don't want to do a damn thing for you.
But keep you ignorant.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, why in the hell why do you vote for people like that? That's what, is race such an imperative that
Well,
you're
it's
going to
an
keep voting for
invention.
the same people that are keeping you living in misery?
As long as you can keep people ignorant and get these things like this made-up thing of race, because we're all the same species.
Right, we all,
all the
Homo
same
sapiens?
species.
Yeah.
So as long as you can do that, then you can win, and it seems to be working for those who rule.
See, that's the thing that European, I don't care what side of the fence you're on in Europe. I don't care if you're a Tory. I don't care if you are a labor person. I don't care if you're a Christian Democrat. I don't care if you are a part of the liberal democratic thing. I don't care if you are a socialist. The whole circle, they are amazed at how Americans constantly vote for people who are against their basic interest. And I find that, to me, I find that to be so sad. How in the hell can a state like West Virginia vote for a guy that doesn't want the federal government to spend money to make sure that your drinking water is pure? And I use drinking water as an example.
He has good water for himself.
Oh, yeah, Manchi, I see you talk. I know, yeah. But I'm saying West Virginia has a horrible problem in terms of environmental conditions, clean water. I mean, can you imagine?
They don't care about that.
Well, why? Okay, they don't. This is what.
They care about making profit.
Well, okay, yeah, right, okay. Well, that's on them, all right.
Mm-hmm.
But me myself, as a human being, as a father, as a husband,
Right.
how the hell could I vote for people that don't want my family to be able to take a freaking bath?
Because they don't know the things that you know. They don't know the things that you know.
So therefore, when we look at, we're coming upon that anniversary on the 6th of January, it becomes a little easier to understand how people could be foolish enough to, hey, Trump says we should march down to the Capitol and take over. And now, it's easier to understand why people were foolish enough to do that. I really understand it. Do you believe, just taking an example of a red state with a Democratic senator, and the damn Republican governor is telling the man, help them pass the damn bill. We need the money. This is a Republican telling them this. Your people need the help.
Well, it just shows you the brilliance of those who rule and how they can control people by keeping them ignorant. That's the way I see it.
And see, this goes back to CRT, what you was just talking about, because my God, not only should those kids be exposed to this history, their parents, one parent or guardian should be made to sit in a chair next to them. Because these damn adults need to know this, what the hell happened. They need to know that the state government flew, because this was in 1923, 22, right? So they had a whole bunch of surplus, they call them old Jenny, biplanes. The state took these planes, got former pilots, and had them drop bombs on union workers in the mining areas of West Virginia and Kentucky. They called out the Army on American workers who wanted a fair wage. And I just, I don't understand why we're not supposed to learn these type of things.
Well, those things are embarrassing that you said.
A lot of things are embarrassing.
They don't teach you those things in the regular school curriculum.
We don't, look, a country cannot grow and prosper if they're going to wait every few minutes to check. Well, does this embarrass us? No. Okay, that's good. Well, this is embarrassing. It says that we actually killed our own workers. People don't need to see this. It's embarrassing. How the hell are you going to learn not to kill your own workers again if you don't know that, this actually did happen in America?
That's happening because the people who benefit from this don't want it known. They don't want those things known.
Well, we have, like I say, some organization or some group has to get together, and this is important. This is important. This is something worth fighting for. Oh, and by the way, to average Joe and Jane lunchbox, you average people out there, no more excuses about, I'm just too damn busy to be involved in politics. Listen, politics ain't politics anymore. We're talking about issues that are life and death. You care about if you show up to your job next Friday and there's no paycheck for you, you're going to be mad as hell. Well, this is the same thing. You have to, if you want to have a decent quality of life, you have to at least take an interest in what the hell is going on. And that's the other problem that we have in this country that you don't find in Europe. People, I don't know, it seems like they don't want to take an interest. And yes, it is a hassle. Yeah, I'd rather be off somewhere drinking a beer, smoking a joint, whatever, than having to deal with all this crap. But sometimes there are certain things that you just got to do if you want to live like a civilized human being. And that's the problem. I tell you what also ticks me off, and there are a lot of things that tick me off, but these new black stations coming out of Atlanta, right? They got these shows, right? All they talking about who's sleeping with who, trying to teach this one how to do a pole dance, trying to teach this other one how to do lap dancing, and, spending hours talking about your love life. Now, Georgia, these people are fighting to try and keep their right to vote. So you think that one of the shows that they would be boosting is a show about, hey, man, show me something about what happened to that boy that was murdered for supposedly whistling at a white woman. Why don't you show me something about Frederick Douglass? Why don't you have people talking about how they are taking away our right to vote and what you're going to go and, organize people to fight against that sort of thing. And I'm no proof. I think pole dancing is nice. I think lap dancing is better. But there's a time and a place for everything. And we need to get real. We need to understand that if we want to live in this society with respect and with dignity, we're going to have to fight for it. And that is my word to black entertainers and black artists. Now, as far as when I said at the beginning of the show about Kanye West, to hell with him, quite frankly, because he is so deep into that, there's like a black MAGA thing, okay? You have told us where your head is at, because you are with people who are against us. It's not a political difference. This man says that blacks and American Jews are stupid, okay, because we don't kiss his butt, basically. And it's time that in our community, we hold people accountable. See what I'm saying? You're going to sit up and sit on this man's desk, President of the United States, and yeah, he's like a father to me. Well, my God, you think that he's like a father to you? Is Jack the Ripper one of your uncles? I mean, come on, man. Where the hell have you been for the last 200 years? And again, I'm not saying because we're black that we all have to think the same way. You think Hitler was a good guy? No, he wasn't. I'm not Jewish, but I recognize evil, all right? And see, apparently that's what happened with Kanye and people like Larry Elder and folks like that, Herschel Walker. You have forgotten what evil is. I would never support any politician, left wing, right wing, chicken wing, if he is in favor of oppressing any group of people. Has no difference. What's out there? Malaysia? We have issues out there. There are issues going down out there. I'm not going to support that person because that person is evil. Because you want to do evil things to innocent people. And that's the same reason why any person, black, white, brown, yellow, red, no one should support Donald Trump or this president Republican Party of any color. But it is ironic to see the slave holding the chair for the slave master. That's where irony comes in. And it's just like, well, what's his name? Bill Maher. He worries about people. Oh, well, you want to use that woke mentality. Yes, because we say woke, that means awake. And what the hell is wrong when you see evil to wake people up to the fact that this is wrong? Woke people are the ones responsible for the Underground Railroad. They said it is evil. It is wrong for America to keep people in chattel slavery in the land that we claim to be the land of the free and the home of the brave. This is wrong. And America needs to wake up to that. They need to get woke. And they started the Underground Railroad. So why is getting woke, why is that now a bad term? And why are you, Brother Bill Maher, at one time a champion of human freedom, why are you on the side of people who are anathema to the idea of our Constitution and what it stands for in terms of human freedom? That is what is confusing a lot of us about Brother Marr. It's a free country. You have a right to think and say what you want. But hey, you have to also understand that we have a right to call you out on it. So that's another point that I wanted to raise. Now, we have a new mayor coming on board next month, black mayor. I hope I can get a chance to interview him because some things about this guy I really do respect. You know, I mean, yeah, he's one of your Brooklyn boys, our new mayor. The guy, he ain't no cream puff. Okay, he is not he's nobody's cream puff, and that's a good thing. He is woke on many issues. I like some of the things that he's trying to do in terms of the public schools. But by the same token, I see where he wants to bring back solitary confinement. Now, solitary confinement was ended by de Blasio after a couple of very, very sad and despicable incidents took place where you had people basically killing themselves, committing suicide, and the whole thing maybe started over somebody shoplifted a $10 bag, something along those lines, see? And I would really like to get the chance to have a chance to interview him and discuss with him what does he mean about going back to solitary confinement and also going back to the undercover. You know, remember these guys were just dressed as civilians. They would just jump out of the car and throw people up against the wall. And I'd like to speak to him about that. Just exactly what, where is he coming from with this? Because we have to be careful here in America because so much, unfortunately, of our history has been so painful that, I remember, again, when I was stationed in Florida, you had, there was some guy, he felt that blacks and Jews were so sensitive. And I had to correct this gentleman and let him know, when you have a tendency to always be getting screwed over, it does kind of make you more sensitive than, say, leave it to Beaver, type guy. Because God knows Jews have caught hell from white Christian America, and not the same way that black Americans have, but catching hell is catching hell. And I had to point out to this guy that was a very dumb thing that he said. Yeah, Jews are sensitive. Yeah, blacks are sensitive. They have a right to be. And that's one of the biggest problems that we have in the United States. And that's why it is important that all of our history be taught. Because a lot of times people don't know. There are people out there, honestly, and some of them are damn good people, but they honestly, I'm not talking about those clowns that were in Charlottesville when Trump began his presidency, and they were, some Unite the Right thing with their little torches and what have you. I'm not talking about those people. but because those were all grown folks, they all should have had World War II and what led up to it in class. But there are people in this country who really don't understand the whole racism, lynch mob, anti-Semitic thing that we had here in this country. And for them, they need to have to learn this in school. Just like you had these a-holes, was it last night or the night before, again, cheering this kid that shot 3 people, killed 2 of them, and they're trying to hold him up as a hero. You got some idiot standing up there saying, yeah, when are we gonna be able to start shooting these bastards? And the guy that was running the thing said, no, don't come out and say that publicly. But that's what they're about. They want to kill people who don't agree with what they agree with. And that's why educating people now is more important than it ever was. Because people need to understand. Yeah, America has, unfortunately, it has been marred by a lot of violence in this country. Thousands of people have been lynched just because of who they look like, if you happen to be black or if you happen to be Chinese. Or for a while, and see, people don't know this, if you were in Louisiana, if you were Italian, you could have a rope around your neck around the 1890s. That's how this country, that's America. And we know about we should know how the Irish were persecuted right here in New York City. They would burn down Catholic churches until you had a bishop, an Irish Catholic bishop, that said, you burn down one more Roman Catholic church, we'll turn New York into Moscow. That doesn't mean anything to us nowadays, but you're talking about the 1840s. And remember, the Russians themselves had just finished burning down Moscow, about maybe 30 years before that. So that's relatively, modern history for those folks at that time. The Russians they burned Moscow because Napoleon had tried to take over Russia. And they said, well, we're not going to leave this guy anything to take over. So before we let him have our capital, we'll burn it down. And that's what happened. And they burned down Moscow. And so this cardinal said, hey, we will do the same thing here in New York City if you keep screwing with us. And I respect that. Because he said, no, you're not going to mess with us. And see, people need to know that part of history as well. Otherwise, we'll never understand ourselves as a country, and we're going to keep having all the good things that America could be about. That's all going to be forgotten about because we're going to just be marred in this constant soup of ancient hatreds. And see, that's what makes Trump and his supporters so despicable. Because they don't want to have a future where we march together, basically trying to live up to the creed of America. One nation under the Creator, made up of people from all over the world. That's what the founding fathers were talking about. What happened to that? I thought these people were so in love with the founding fathers. This is enough what the founders were talking about. People like Bannon, people like Trump, who should be an American? Well, people that come here, live by the law, and want to enrich the country, both socially and economically. That's what America's supposed to be about. And see, this is what we have to fight for. And this is why history needs to be taught. And my words to Virginia, listen, when you start talking about burning books, the next thing you know, you're going to be talking about burning people. And the world's already had a big dose of that. We don't need that in this country. Anything to say before we sign off?
Well, it gets me to the point where I think we need to work on getting people away from the ignorant information they're getting and getting them to their real education,
Hear, hear.
which is liberating and not enslaving someone in ignorance.
Here, here, here. Folks, the holidays are coming up. So listen, enjoy your holiday. Enjoy your friends and family. And let's all try and have peaceful thoughts, loving thoughts, and pray that next year it will start to get better. And it can, but we have to make it happen. Listen, this is the Concern Forum, and we will see you. What's today? Today is the 21st, right? I believe it is. We will see you.
It's 22nd.
22nd. Have a great holiday, and we will see you after the holiday. As a matter of fact, when this is shown, should be after the 1st of January. So take our good wishes. God bless. See you next year. Oh, and my brother, thank you so